This happened on my first night shift about 3 weeks ago. I'm a 30-year-old nurse, just starting out in the emergency department. I needed the income to pay off my student loans, and I thought night shifts would be fine. Honestly, I was exhausted but trying to focus on my responsibilities. I've never stopped thinking about that night. It was quiet at first. I made my rounds, checking on patients and making sure the equipment was working. The fluorescent lights flickered a bit, but that happened sometimes. I didn't think much of it. Then, as I passed room 214, I heard something. It sounded like a soft voice. It wasn't loud, more of a whisper, really. I paused and listened. I thought I was imagining things, maybe just tired. The hall was empty, just shadows and the distant hum of machines. I shrugged it off and kept walking. Around 2 a.m., I was in the break room, staring at the walls, wishing for coffee. I glanced back toward the hallway. There it was again, a soft, pleading sound. This time, I felt a chill run down my spine. Maybe I should check, I thought, but I didn't. I felt foolish. Work continued, and over the next few nights things only got stranger. Equipment started malfunctioning. One time, the heart monitor beeped wildly, even though the patient was stable. I fixed it, but I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. I would catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, shadows slipping around corners, just beyond my field of vision. I tried to tell my co-workers. They laughed it off, called it night shift madness. I started to doubt myself. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was imagining it. Yet every night the voice returned, softer but more insistent. It was as if someone needed help, but nobody was there to hear it. Then one night I was in the hallway checking on a patient who kept mumbling. I could barely make out the words, but it sounded like, "Help me." My heart raced. I stepped outside the room. Then I looked over to room 214 again. The door was slightly ajar, almost inviting. I approached, each step heavy with dread. I peered inside. A man was just standing there, staring at me. I asked if he was okay, but he didn't respond. I felt an urgent need to turn and walk away, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The air around me grew cold. Then he spoke. It was a raspy, haunting whisper. "Why are you with her?" I spun around. Nobody was there. My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I stepped back, wanting to run, but I couldn't. A part of me needed answers. "Who's her?" I whispered, looking nervously back to the empty hallway. But nothing came. The floor felt unsteady, as if the whole building was holding its breath. I finally turned and hurried away, the feeling of dread wrapping tightly around me. I was terrified of what awaited me in the quiet of the night. As I left room 214, I felt the weight of the air pressing down on my chest. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but the curiosity gnawed at my mind. Who was that man? And what did he mean by her? I needed answers. When my shift ended, I tried to shake it off. I went home, showered, and crawled into bed. Yet sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying the night in my head. I shouldn't have gone near that room. I wished I had ignored the voice altogether. The next night at work, I felt on edge. As I entered the emergency department, I scanned the area. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. During my rounds, I checked room 206, where a young woman lay, unconscious. I moved to adjust her IV line when I caught a glimpse of something in the reflection of the monitor. I turned just in time to see a shadow along the wall, darting away. Heart in my throat, I looked around, but there was nothing there. I dismissed it as my imagination. By 2 a.m., the energy in the department shifted. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the hallway into darkness. I felt a surge of panic as I reached for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the blackness. That's when I heard it again. A faint whisper, more urgent this time. "Help me." My pulse raced. I followed the sound, heart pounding against my ribcage. This time, I couldn't ignore it. I had to find out what was happening. I turned towards room 214, the door completely open now. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. It was empty, but a cold draft swept through. I could feel it wrapping around me like a shroud. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I heard the whisper again, clearer. "Why have you come back?" My skin crawled. I stumbled back, scanning the room. The man wasn't there, but the unease settled in the pit of my stomach. I wanted to run, but my feet felt cemented to the floor. Instead, I forced myself to speak. "I need to know who you are," I said, my voice shaking. "What do you want?" The silence hung heavy. Then I saw movement in the corner of my eye again. This time, it didn't fade. A figure appeared, more defined. It was a woman, her face pale, eyes pleading. "Help me," she whispered, reaching out. The moment I locked eyes with her, a rush of memories surged. Images of a similar face from an old photograph I had seen at the hospital's nurse station. I had thought it was just another staff member, but the realization hit me. That woman had been a nurse here years ago. She had died under mysterious circumstances. I remembered the evening shift when whispers circulated about her life and how she seemed to vanish without a trace. My heart raced as I began to understand. There were more answers to find. I stepped back, the figure fading into the shadows. That's when I noticed something on the floor. A diary, partially hidden under the bed. The cover was worn, but I could see a name scrawled across it, Jenna. I reached down to pick it up, my heart thrumming wildly. What had I uncovered? Then everything went dark, and the room grew quiet. My breath caught in my throat as I stood in the silence, the weight of the past pressing down around me. I held the diary in my hands, the cover cool against my palm. The absence of light made it hard to read the faded letters, but I could still feel the weight of Jenna's story buried within its pages. There was something urgent about it, like it was calling me to uncover its secrets. As I fumbled to find the right angle, the lights flickered back on, bathing the room in an unsettling glow. I jumped at the sudden brightness, casting a glance around for any sign of the woman, but she was gone, and the only thing left was that diary, waiting for me to dive in. I flipped it open, racing my thumb along the delicate pages. The handwriting was a mix of neat loops and frantic scrawls. My mind raced as I tried to decipher the faded ink. The first entry detailed Jenna's life as a nurse, her passion for care, her hopes for the future. But as I turned the pages, the tone shifted. She began to write about someone, an unnamed presence, someone who seemed to shadow her every move. "Sometimes I feel like I'm being watched," one entry read. "At first I thought it was just my imagination, but now I'm not sure. I hear whispers, and they call my name." I shivered, the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. This was eerily familiar. It felt like she was echoing my own experience. But then I reached a passage that made my blood run cold. "There are things here in this hospital that shouldn't be. I fear I might be next. I can feel the darkness creeping in." The pages grew more frantic, more desperate. Her last entry was barely legible, filled with scratch marks and tear stains. "I need help. I'm afraid. If anyone finds this, they must know to stay away from room 214. It's not safe." I slammed the diary shut, panic bubbling in my throat. This was not just a story, it was a warning. Suddenly I felt the weight of Jenna's unfinished business on my shoulders. The whispers, the figure, they weren't just figments of my imagination. Something had happened to her, and I had unwittingly walked into it. Another sound cut through the silence. Metal clattered from the hallway, a distant scream echoing off the walls. My heart dropped. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to find out what happened to Jenna. What had she meant by darkness? And who was watching her? I slipped the diary into my scrubs before stepping cautiously out of the room. The air felt thicker than before. Each footstep resonated down the hallway, sending shockwaves of dread through me. As I approached the source of the noise, I noticed a shadow flit past the nurse's station. My breath quickened, realizing it wasn't over. I couldn't turn back now. I had uncovered something terrifying. Then I heard it again, the urgent whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Help me." I steeled myself, driven by fear and the need for answers, but as I walked towards the sound, I felt the air grow colder, the weight of Jenna's fate bearing down on me. What lay ahead was a confrontation with the past, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what I would find. I moved further down the hallway, following the chilling whisper. My senses were heightened, each creak and groan of the building echoing in my ears. I squeezed the diary in my pocket, its presence both comforting and haunting. As I turned the corner, I spotted room 214. The door was ajar, swinging slightly, as if inviting me in. A strange mix of dread and determination propelled me forward. I hesitated for a moment, the fear of what lay inside holding me back. But I couldn't turn away now. I needed to know. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The room was dark, the only light coming from a flickering bulb above. I stepped inside, squinting to make out the details. The bed was unmade, the sheets twisted as if someone had just been taken from it. And on the wall I noticed strange markings, like scratches or desperate claw marks. "Help me!" The voice came again, clearer this time. It wasn't just a whisper, it was a plea. I followed the sound to the bathroom. The door was slightly ajar, and through its crack I could see shadows shifting within. Heart racing, I nudged the door open wider. The sight within made my stomach drop. A figure crouched in the corner, shrouded in darkness, trembling. I could only catch glimpses of their face, impossible to tell if it was Jenna or someone else. "Please," the voice trembled. "They're coming for me." My gut twisted with fear. It was a call for help, but the shadows beyond the bathroom were moving closer. A heavy weight filled the air. I felt like I was suffocating. I had to act. "Who's coming?" I shouted, my voice shaking. Panic clawed at my throat, but I took a step closer. As I approached, the figure turned their head, and I saw wide eyes filled with terror. "Run!" they screamed, and in that moment the lights flickered violently. The shadows in the room began to swell, forming into dark shapes that stretched toward us. Then, with a loud crash, the flickering bulb shattered, plunging us into darkness. "Get out!" the figure cried, but I was frozen in place. The oppressive darkness enveloped me, choking off my strength. I stumbled backward, and just as I was about to reach for the door, I felt something latch onto my ankle. Panic surged through me, and my instincts kicked in. I kicked out, feeling my foot connect with something solid, but it didn't let go. The grip tightened, pulling me back. I finally found my legs and bolted toward the door, dragging the diary along with me. I rushed through the threshold and slammed the door shut behind me. Breathless, I pressed my back against the cool metal, heart pounding. But I could still hear the whispers, the unmistakable call for help, echoing in my ears. Then a low, guttural laugh filtered through the door. The darkness felt alive, moving just beyond the barrier I had created. What had I unleashed, and who or what was in that bathroom? I knew I had to find Jenna. The darkness was coming, and it was hungry. I took a shaky step forward, no longer sure if I was prepared for what I'd learn next. I took another deep breath, my mind racing. I had to move. I stepped quickly down the hallway, trying to shake the images from the dimly lit room from my thoughts. The hallway ahead was dark, but I could still see the flicker of light coming from the nurse's station at the end. Maybe someone there would know what was happening. As I approached, I noticed the flicker was too dim, too erratic. The shadows seemed to bend around me. I walked past the doors of other rooms, all locked tight, eerily quiet. I paused at the corner of my eye. A figure stood beside the nurse's station. My heart dropped when I noticed the silhouette beginning to form. "Hey!" I called out, hoping it was a nurse or someone who could help. The figure turned, but it was only another patient, their gaze vacant, mouth slightly open. They looked lost, like they didn't belong. I hesitated, but pushed past them anyway. I had to find answers. At the nurse's station, I found no one there. The computers flickered with error messages, and charts lay strewn across the counter as if a storm had blown through. I glanced around frantically, searching for a clue, any sign of where to go next. That's when I noticed the diary I had dropped. The cover was facing up, and it seemed to call to me. I picked it up, feeling the familiar weight of it in my hands. I opened to the last entry, hoping for guidance. My heart raced as I read the words. They live in the walls. You have to leave before they come for you. Trust the one who whispers. Just then, a loud bang echoed through the hallway behind me. The sound jolted me into action. I turned, retreating from the station, and rushed back toward the stairs that led to the floor below. I could hear muffled voices now, and the urgency picked up in their tones. I took the steps 2 at a time, desperate to reach the safety of the ground level. But when I reached the last step and emerged into the lobby, it was empty. Lights flickered overhead, and I felt a chill sweep through the room, making me shiver. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, filling the space around me. I looked around, feeling their presence everywhere. "Help us," they urged, echoing in unison. Yet I couldn't see anyone. The walls seemed to pulse with life, and a restless energy filled the air. I was about to bolt back toward the stairs when movement caught my eye. It was a figure standing at the entrance, silhouetted in the doorway. My heart plummeted when I recognized the face. It was Jenna. She looked pale, disheveled, as if she had come back from the brink of something terrible. "Get out of here," she shouted, her voice strained. "You don't belong here." Before I could utter a word, the lights flickered once more, plunging me into darkness again. I could hear the shadows drawing closer, senses heightened. There was no room for doubt, and that's when I saw it. A dark shape slithering out of the walls, moving toward us. My blood ran cold. I had to choose, face my fear or run from an unimaginable terror. I didn't have time to think. I sprinted towards Jenna, my heart hammering in my chest. "What are you doing here?" I shouted, trying to grasp the urgency in her eyes. "Don't talk, just follow me," she yelled, and without waiting for me to respond, she turned and raced down the corridor. The dark shape behind us continued to slither, a shadowy mass that seemed to pulse with malevolence. I followed Jenna, my legs moving as if on autopilot. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my ears, begging for something I didn't understand. "Help us! Help us!" they echoed, filling every crevice in my mind. I wanted to scream, to drown them out, but Jenna's frantic movements kept me grounded. We skidded around a corner, and the hallway opened up into a larger common area, abandoned and dusty. Broken chairs lay overturned, and flickering lights cast strange shadows across the walls. Jenna dashed towards the exit at the far end, but my instincts told me this was a trap. "Jenna, wait!" I yelled, catching up to her. "What do we do? Where are we going?" She stopped, her face a mask of fear and determination. "We need to find a way out. They don't want us here." Before I could respond, the shadows shifted behind us, coalescing into a form that was all too familiar and all too wrong. I could see eyes now, multiple, glinting with a predatory hunger. Panic surged within me. "Don't look at them," Jenna commanded, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. "We need to stick together, focus on the door." I nodded, but fear twisted my gut. What are they? What do they want? Jenna pulled me further into the common area, glancing over her shoulder. "I don't know, but I think they want our feelings, our fears. They feed off them." My breath caught in my throat. I could feel those whispers surge inside me, tugging at my thoughts, trying to unravel my sanity. "What do you mean?" "There's something here, something in the walls. It's alive." Suddenly, the lights went out again, plunging us into darkness. I could hear the whispers intensifying, swirling around us, mocking us. "Help us! Help us!" I forced myself to focus on Jenna's voice. "It's just a trick," I whispered, though my heart raced with doubt. "Stay close." Then I felt it. The air shifted, heavy and electric. Shadows crept closer, creeping along the floor and walls, wrapping around my ankles like icy tendrils. I swallowed hard, desperately trying to pull away. "Jenna!" I shouted. I didn't know what was happening, but I was terrified. "Run!" she cried, and just as she grabbed my hand, the door swung open with an ominous creak. A flash of blinding light illuminated a figure standing outside. Time froze. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the face. It was someone I thought I'd never see again. "Come with me!" they shouted, urgency thrumming in their voice. Was this my way out, or was it another trap? "Trust the one who whispers," the diary echoed in my mind. I needed to decide fast. Should I leap toward the light, or stay amidst the shadows? I took a breath, my mind racing. The figure in the light was someone I wanted to believe in, but everything felt distorted. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to pierce the overwhelming noise of the shadows. "Just come with me." They reached out, their hand trembling in the light. Jenna was ready to bolt again, but I hesitated. I could feel the whispers sneaking into my thoughts, urging me to step back into the familiar darkness. "Trust them," Jenna hissed, the urgency undeniable in her tone. "We can't stay here." With a final glance at the swirling shadows behind us, I made my choice. I charged toward the light, gripping Jenna's hand tighter. The figure pulled us into the blinding glow, and for a moment everything felt pure. The shadows faded, their whispers muffled into nothingness, but as we stumbled forward, the light flickered. I felt a sudden chill sweep through the air, as if the shadows were clawing back at us. I turned to face the figure. "What do you want? What's going on?" Their expression twisted with concern. "You need to listen. The Dark Ones, they're looking for you. They want to use your feelings against you. You can't let them." Jenna's eyes darted around, flicking toward a door on the far side of a large, sterile room. "We need to move. They won't be held back for long." Without thinking, I followed Jenna toward the door, but the figure grabbed my arm. "Wait, there's more. You're not just running from them. You're a key to something much darker." "Stop!" I shouted, pulling away. "What do you mean? What am I a key to?" But before I could hear the answer, the room trembled. Walls rattled, and the ceiling whispered secrets of despair. Shadows emerged again, forming sinister shapes that lunged at us from all sides. I could feel Jenna's grip slip as the darkness clawed at our heels. "Don't look back!" she yelled, and I forced my eyes forward, sprinting toward the door. As we reached it, cold fingers brushed against my neck, sending a jolt of icy fear through me. I gritted my teeth and pushed the door open. We stumbled into another hallway, completely different. This one felt familiar, yet wrong. "What is this place?" I gasped, scanning the walls adorned with pictures of smiling faces. They appeared to stare at us, eyes filled with unspoken warnings. "It's part of it. The lies," Jenna replied, panting. "They trap people here, feed off their emotions until they are hollow." I shook my head, trying to process what she was saying. But even as I spoke, I could feel an unsettling pull, an urge to believe the wall's deception. "Then how do we escape?" Jenna turned to me, her fear mirrored in my expression. "We have to find the heart of this place. There's a way to end it, to sever their connection to us." Before I could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, getting closer. The shadows lurked, inching toward us, their whispers now sharp and urgent. That's when I saw it. A flicker of movement at the end of the hall. A figure was emerging, silhouetted by the dim light. I felt a chill creep over me, dread pooling in my stomach. The figure paused, and I squinted, trying to make out their face. Was it someone we knew, or something else entirely? "Get ready," Jenna whispered, as I realized the darkness wasn't just behind us, it was closing in from all sides. I squinted, desperate to discern the figure's features. My heart raced. "Who is it?" I whispered to Jenna, but she didn't have an answer. The figure stepped into the light, and I staggered back, nearly colliding with Jenna. It was someone I recognized but couldn't believe was here. Is that... No way! My breath caught in my throat. It can't be. Jenna glanced back and froze, eyes wide. What the hell? How is that possible? The person before us was Alex, a friend from high school. There was something off about his expression, though. His smile looked forced, eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. "You've made it this far," he said, his voice smooth but hollow. "What happened to you?" I asked, stepping forward, though every instinct screamed to retreat. "We thought you—" "Thought I was what? Lost?" He chuckled, but the sound echoed eerily through the hall. "I'm not lost. I found my way here. You two have potential, but you need to embrace the darkness." "No!" Jenna shouted, stepping in front of me. "You're not Alex. The real Alex wouldn't say that." The figure tilted his head, and a flicker of rage crossed his face. "You don't understand. The darkness is power. You can't escape it. You belong here with me." The whispering shadows surged, their voices overlapping in a crescendo of doubt and despair. My mind raced as memory flashed. Alex's laughter, his kindness, all now twisted into this sinister tableau. "You were always there for us. Why are you doing this?" "I'm showing you the truth." He gestured around, and the walls throbbed as if they were alive. "Everyone depicted in these pictures? They weren't hollow. They chose this." "No!" Jenna's voice cut through the rising panic. "You don't get to make this choice for us." I watched as Alex's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. The shadows swirled closer, an army waiting for a command. I felt the walls closing in, each painted smile mocking us. "What's your plan?" I spat at him, clenching my fists. "To trap us like the others?" "You need to decide," Alex said, frustration creeping into his tone. "Join us or run into the dark. Either way, this place is hungry." I exchanged a glance with Jenna. "We can't trust him." Panic bubbled inside me, but a strange part wanted to ask Alex for help. Was it the darkness whispering to me? The shadows swarmed, hungry for any weakness. Then, in a moment of clarity, a thought burst forth. "The heart! Jenna! The heart of this place! We're supposed to destroy it!" "The what?" Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. But before I could explain, Jenna took my wrist. "We need to go now. We can find it before he—" Then everything went dark. The lights flickered before dying, plunging us into chaos. I felt the shadows lash out, the cooling grip of despair tightening around us. Alex's voice echoed in the dark. "You can't escape. You were destined to be part of this. The heart will find you." "No!" I screamed, but the darkness swallowed my words, leaving only the chilling laughter of shadows behind. I gasped as I stumbled, my senses overwhelmed in the pitch-black void. Panic surged through me, a cold sensation that pulled at my limbs. I reached for Jenna, praying she was still beside me. "Jenna," I whispered, but the darkness swallowed my words. Without warning, a faint glow flickered in the distance. My mind raced. Was it an exit? Hope surged, but it quickly faded as I recalled Alex's warning. The heart of this place. "Jenna!" I shouted again, louder this time, my voice trembling. There was no reply. The oppressive silence surrounded me like a heavy blanket, smothering all thoughts of escape. I forced myself to move forward, that distant light my only guide. Each step felt like I was trudging through thick mud, the shadows whispering in my ear. "Turn back," they murmured. "You don't want to go there." Ignoring the voices, I centered my focus on the glow. I could see it more clearly now, pulsating rhythmically. It was mesmerizing, but there was something about it that set my nerves on edge. "I have to find Jenna," I whispered to myself. I took a deep breath and pushed through the fear that clung to me. The light grew brighter. Maybe it was a clue. But as I stepped closer, the shadows lunged forward, brushing against my arms like icy fingers. "You're drawing too near," they hissed with a cacophony of voices. "Stay in the safety of the darkness." No, I shouted defiantly. I wasn't succumbing to that. I forced myself to keep moving toward the light, the shadows clawing at my mind, filling me with doubt. And then, just as I felt I might reach it, a figure exploded from the darkness beside me. I was knocked off balance, landing hard against the ground. "What the hell?" I gasped, staring up wide-eyed. It was Jenna. Relief swept through me before dread settled in. She looked disheveled and panicked. "We need to go," she urged, pulling me up as the light flickered dangerously behind us. "No, we found it," I argued, heart racing. "What if it's the heart? We can destroy it." "Are you out of your mind?" Jenna's eyes darted around, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to escape. It's calling to you. It's using your fear." Before I could respond, a low rumble vibrated the ground beneath us. The light surged, and suddenly distorted images emerged within it. Faces I didn't recognize, all twisted in expressions of despair. "What is that?" I breathed, instinctively taking a step back. "The heart manifests fears," Jenna said, trembling as she grabbed my arm. "It senses what haunts you and uses it against you." I looked closer. The faces seemed connected somehow, as if they were linked by the same fate. I felt a jolt of recognition, but how could they be real? My heart pounded. Had they chosen this fate too? Suddenly Alex's voice echoed in the air around us. "You can't run from who you are, you know." The chill in his tone cut through the darkness. "You are drawn to the heart because you belong here." I glanced at Jenna, her fear matching mine. "What do we do?" I asked, desperation creeping in. "Fight it!" she exclaimed through gritted teeth as the ground shook again. "Don't give in! We need to escape this nightmare!" And that's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shifting shadows, moving closer with purpose. My blood ran cold as I realized the danger was far from over. "Someone's here!" I uttered, grabbing Jenna's hand tightly. "We have to run!" We sprinted down the corridor, breathing hard, the air thick with despair. The echo of our footsteps mingled with the relentless whispers, a cacophony urging us to succumb. I could still hear Alex, his voice tangling with the shadows, teasing us with memories that felt too real. "Keep moving!" Jenna urged, her grip tightening on my hand as we barreled down toward the flickering light, the heartbeat of this monstrous place. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was shifting around us, walls bending and retracting like the inhales of a beast. We turned a corner and skidded to stop in front of another entryway. A flickering sign overhead read, "Intensive Care Unit." Instinct kicked in, and we slipped inside. The lights were fully functional here, glaring down from the ceiling, making the stark white walls look sterile but haunting. "Is this a safe place?" I asked between gasps. "I don't know," Jenna replied, breathing heavy, cheeks flushed. "But we can hide." We pressed ourselves against the wall, hearts racing in tandem. I took a moment to steady my breathing, allowing my eyes to survey the room. Beds sat empty, monitors quietly blinking steady lines, ghostly reminders of those who'd once occupied them. Suddenly, a sense of déjà vu washed over me. I turned, catching another glimpse of a shadow slipping past the curtains, but it was gone before I could focus. The whispers returned, rising in urgency. "Help us! Help us!" I clamped my hands over my ears, squeezing my eyes shut, desperate to block them out. "Don't listen! We have to push through!" Jenna said, grabbing my arm with intensity. As we moved deeper into the unit, I remembered the diary's warning. Trust the one who whispers. Who had whispered to me in room 214? The shadows? Or was Alex, whatever he had become, right? I wrestled with my thoughts, grappling between the ideas forming like icicles in the recesses of my mind. "Look!" Jenna interrupted my spiral of fear, pointing to a door at the far end, its edges glimmering. "That might be the exit." Just as we made to sprint toward it, the lights dimmed again. The shadows thickened, coalescing into darker shapes that seemed to anticipate our moves. "You can't escape!" The disembodied voice of Alex rang out in mockery, resonance bouncing off the walls. "We need to go," I yelled, yanking Jenna toward the glowing exit. The entities surged forward, an explosion of whispers and horrifying howls, mixing with the relentless promises of frightful power. Somewhere in the chaos I heard Jenna scream. I turned, feeling a grip of cold air sting my skin. She had stumbled, and I felt a pang of guilt that we couldn't hold it together. I reached for her, relief flooding my senses when our fingers locked again. "Run!" I shouted, both of us now driven by adrenaline and fear. We barreled toward the door, every inch fought against the palpable fear threatening to consume us. "We're almost there," I gasped, but as we reached for the handle, it swung wide open. And there stood the twisted silhouette of Alex again, this time grinning darkly. "You don't understand," he drawled. "You're not trapped here. You're part of it." I took a step back, the shadows encircling us with sinister whispering intent. "What do you mean?" I shouted, desperation flaring in my chest. But before he could reply, light flooded the room, and a bright figure appeared behind him, a woman with familiar haunted eyes. Jenna's face lit up with recognition. "It's her! It's Jenna!" "Help me!" the figure exclaimed, voice steady yet trembling with urgency. She looked nearly identical to Jenna, a juxtaposition piercing through the dreary atmosphere. "Don't approach her," Alex commanded, stepping in front of her, shadow looming larger as he grew desperate. "She's a creation of this place, using you." "Get out of my way," I yelled back. My energy surged, a sudden warmth igniting within me. "You're the one who doesn't belong." The shadow wrapped tighter around me. Whispers clung to my skin. "Help us!" Echoed, blending with my racing thoughts. I resolved to push past the fear and the darkness. "Not today." In one swift motion, I turned and dove toward the light surrounding the figure, Jenna doing the same beside me. We broke through the threshold as the shadows lunged, their claws grasping for our limbs, desperation bleeding through their voice. "Help me! Save us both!" the vision Jenna cried, and I could see the clarity lighting her face, a reflection of everything we feared yet yearned to escape. With a final surge of power, I grasped Jenna's hand as we rushed toward the light. The darkness wailed, the shrieks twisting with rage. Just as we felt its chill closing in, we leapt into the light that enveloped us, and for a split second, a sense of relief fell over me. But in an instant, the euphoria of escape began to dissolve as reality drew back. The glow faded, and the world pulsed around us, blurring. As I blinked, the hospital came back into view, quiet, calm, as if no horrors had ever occurred. What just happened? I turned, searching for Jenna. "Where are we?" But Jenna was gone. There was nothing but vacant hallways, muted fluorescent lights flickering like stars fading into the night. I felt the weight of the panted breaths still lingering, the shadows coiling deeper in my heart. I opened my mouth to scream, but the oppressive silence swallowed my voice, leaving only the echoes of what might have been, and questions still hanging thick in the air. The darkness wasn't defeated. I had escaped this night, yes, but the uncertainty remained. What had been real, or was it all a figment? The whispers lingered in my mind as I stepped into the quiet void of the hallway. "Help us. Help us." I still think about it sometimes. What happened to Jenna, to the man in room 214, and whether the darkness ever really let go. All I know is I never went back to night shifts again. But the shadows whispered, and sometimes in the dead of night I still hear them calling.